Realize when we start creating work or teaching aids or posters for our class that we must keep in mind we all have different ways of teaching, but that must not be the main thing. We must always keep in mind the students, and we must adapt according to the students that we have in front of us, because they have different ways of learning. So when you create these things for your walls and your lessons, try to think of your students. So every year you will create new lessons because you will know your students, and you will do it according to your students. But we have to have something for every student during a lesson or something in the class for all our students.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Francois Nodia and I am a super teacher. And this is Super Teachers Unite, the show that's all about motivating, inspiring and supporting teachers. And with me today, I've got Herman Matthee, another super teacher that I'd like to introduce you to. Herman, thank you very much for being on the show with us today.
Thank you, Francois. It is amazing to be on the show and to speak to another or other super teachers as well.
We're so excited. Herman is currently the curriculum manager at the Curro group for languages and life skills. So in the rest of this episode, remember what we do for the first 5 to 10 minutes, all value, tips and tricks and things that Herman would think is of value to teachers. And then after that, we'll get into his origin story and we'll get to know more about Herman. So let's educate. Herman, start us off. The floor is yours. What would you like to share with the other super teachers out there?
Well, I think the most important thing for all teachers will be to create an environment. It will make it so much easier for you as a teacher to go into an environment that you enjoy, as well as it will be an environment for your students to enjoy. Because we mustn't think about ourselves the whole time, but also about our students. They are the most important aspect of teaching, and we must always put them first. So to walk into a boring environment, it's terrible.
No.
You as a teacher spend most of your day in your classroom, and the students come into your classroom, so they don't want to come into a boring something that's not educational at all.
Yeah.
So everything in the classroom must be of value and must be there to stimulate the students, as well to make your life as a teacher more practical. So everything that's there you must be able to use as well in your teaching.
Herman, I agree with you. The environment that we learn in is so extremely important. And the other aspect is, if it's your classroom and you spend time in your classroom, why not make it exciting? If you're going to spend 6 to 8 hours at the school every day within one specific classroom, why have it boring? Like, make your life interesting. But I agree with you, especially on the fact on educational value.
Yes, I don't want teachers to just put something in a class just for the sake of having something against the walls or in the classroom. It must be something that they can use in their teaching, and it must be of value for the students.
One thing that I generally hear from other teachers is they're very reluctant to overpopulate the classrooms with posters or other resources because they feel that children can be distracted quite easily. What's your take on that?
No, I believe put a lot of stuff in there. There's a lot of minds that we need to stimulate, and they're all different. We sit sometimes with 35 students in front of us, and they all have a different way of learning. So it might be destructive for the first day, but then they're used to it. But you also have to change it every now and then.
Yeah.
It mustn't be there year in and year out, and after a while you have yellow posters against your wall.
Yeah, with the
because
paper
they are
deteriorating
so
and the sun
Yeah.
taking away the color.
So change the stuff. You can always reuse it the next year.
Yeah.
Build a collection up for yourself so that you can reuse and plan your lessons in such a way that you use your teaching aids against the walls.
So, well, Herman, where do we get decent teaching aids?
Well, for me, I think the best way is to create your own. It's very easy to go onto the internet. In South Africa, you don't get a lot in the shops. On the internet, there's also not a lot available. Most of it is from America, and then it's the wrong spelling, because we teach the British English.
Especially when you look from a language perspective,
Yes.
it's extremely important. So getting your resources from a country that doesn't use the language as we do is a problem.
But also other subjects, because they also learn spelling there. So we must make sure that the correct spelling and terminology will be against the walls, and not just any spelling to have it there.
So that makes it extremely important for teachers to create their own resources that they would like to use in the classroom. And how do you feel about children creating resources for the classroom?
And not all the resources must be created by the students. There must always be space in your classroom for the students' posters or whatever they create for the teacher as part of the project. But that must also, you must change it, because students love reading other students' work.
Yeah.
In fact, when you put it against the wall, don't write marks or anything on it. Write good comments, but it also gives the weaker learner sometimes a chance to have something against the wall, and they are very proud, and that will motivate them to actually do better, to have their work against the wall again.
That's such an important point that you're making, that we do not add the quantitative mark of the assessment to it. For that you can have a rubric and keep that separate, or a checklist, and you keep that separate from the actual work. For instance, let's use a poster as an example. But all of us have got a different skill set, and we've got all different talents. So this gives the opportunity for people from a diverse skill set to have their work showcased, and also have that pride in seeing that my teacher selected my work to be on the wall.
Yeah, that's very important. And we must also realize, when we start creating work or teaching aids or posters for our class, that we must keep in mind we all have different ways of teaching. But that must not be the main thing. We must always keep in mind the students, and we must adapt according to the students that we have in front of us, because they have different ways of learning. So when you create these things for your walls and your lessons, try to think of your students. So every year you will create new lessons, because you will know your students, and you will do it according to your students. But we have to have something for every student during a lesson, or something in the class for all our students.
Yeah. So this happens in every single episode. I'm already hearing some of the other teachers shouting in my ear, and I've got this one, I'm calling it, I'm just naming this teacher Tinus. Tinus is now sitting there, and he's thinking, yeah, good, thank you for this information, but you know what, I've got 40 kids in the classroom, I've got the full curriculum, I've got marking to do. How am I going to create posters and resources for my classroom every single year? Where am I going to find the time? What's your response to a teacher like Tinus telling you this?
There's always time. I think if you're busy, you can always do more. And people who don't have time don't do anything. That's just my philosophy in life. The more you have, the more you can do.
Yeah.
You're not going to have everything in the first year of your teaching. You will build on it, and you keep it in a file or in a container. I had containers in my class with the different themes and the different topics on it, and then every year I take it out when I do that specific lesson. I see, what do I need for this lesson, because I'm thinking of the students in my class, and I will add some things I won't use again. So, but give yourself 3-4 years, and then you will have everything that you need to have. Don't try to have everything the first day of teaching.
Yeah, it's extremely valuable what you're telling us here, that it's so important that we document what we do instead of just creating every single time, trying to ensure that in that first year we've got everything, and that puts a lot of pressure on us. Newly qualified teachers often moan about this and say that it's difficult to be a newly qualified teacher. But if we take this idea that you'll be teaching for 20 to 30 years, imagine what you can collect over that time.
Yes. When you start your teaching career, there's a few things that I suggest that you put in your classroom to make it comfortable for you. Always keep your classroom neat, because it's like your house. Keep it neat. You are going to get visitors. Keep your table neat. I must tell you, when I never used my table, but in the beginning of the day it was clean. At the end of the day it was a big heap of stuff. And as I teach, I use stuff and I've just put it on the table. So it took me about an hour every afternoon just to file and pack away everything again. Because I'm a visual teacher. I like it when students can see it. They must be able to touch it. They must be able to do it. They must experience the whole lesson. It must be a life experience to them.
So what you're saying is, like, the resources become such an important part of your lesson, because we tend to fall in that trap where we read off of a data projector screen, or read off the slides, or we read out of the textbook. Very teacher-centered, uncreative lessons.
Yes, but say you do a PowerPoint. You also create your PowerPoint. You keep them there. You use them every year. You just add and do things that you need to put in there. But it can be very interactive. Use as you have it on a whiteboard, use your whiteboard markers, and the kids come and they work on the board on that specific PowerPoint. The end you can just erase it, but make your lessons interactive.
Yeah,
because learners will learn more when it's interactive.
And when they do, when they participate, let's get them hands-on busy. And for that, you'll need resources. And I like this thing that you said, that your table at the end of the day would be absolute chaos. I'm a big perpetrator of that. But I didn't have the discipline to pack everything away after the first day. So I remember when I got evaluated as a student teacher, I was full-time teaching as well. And as my professor walked in, that table of mine was this mountain of papers and admin. And I basically just had to throw everything off and just pack them away. And I had a clean table for the first time ever.
Yes, that's quite a big job, but you have to make the time. I know there's sport in the afternoons, or there's cultural activities. We just need to work around that.
Yeah, have the discipline.
The discipline, yes, to just pack away and make sure everything is in order and packed away. Then you make your life as teacher much easier. But as I can come back to the lessons, you really need to think of the students. You get your students who will do excellent if you only read from a textbook. But for some other students it will be so frustrated. So for them, your creative students, you must have a creative activity during your lessons. But the students that's not creative must also take part in that. And that teaches them to think creatively.
Yes, because not everybody's got the same skill sets or proficiencies, but we have to create that lesson or that environment. And I feel that's the purpose or the art of teaching, is creating a lesson space or an experience where everybody has the opportunity to develop certain skills.
Yes, definitely.
Cool. So Herman, what else? What else can you share with us? What would you reckon a teacher that's watching this video would find value from in your experience?
Well, I think we must put it. I will send you the list, and we can add it to.
Perfect. Yes.
Certain things that you as a teacher can have in your class when you start the year. Things like, for instance, a job chart. Students like to be involved in the class, so you have your job chart. I'll send you the tick list, and I'll send you some examples that you can make available.
Thank you. That's very kind. We'll put a link to everything in the description of this video, so that you can get it. You can get it from there.
A birthday chart. You must make your students feel special.
Yeah, of course. Everybody loves their birthday. That's your special day.
And you might have your own ideas, but to start off, there's a basic one.
Okay.
That you can have a map, a world map in your class, because you often use the world map to show the students the different countries of the world where this might happen. The reading passage might be in France, and you can show them on the map where's France. So make it relevant to the students. And there's a huge list that we can use.
Wonderful.
That they can have a tick list and they can put it in their classrooms.
So just to premise this, we didn't add this at the start of the video, but Herman, you focus primarily on primary school, intermediate phase.
Yes, but you know, but those things can also be in a high school classroom.
And that's exactly what I just wanted to say. We are so reluctant to include this in the high school. What's your experience of that?
You know what, high school children also want to feel special. Also have a birthday chart in your class for them. Make your high school classroom environment also fun for the students to come in.
I agree. When I go and do school visits, you see the foundation phase classrooms. It's amazing. It's so print rich. There's a lot of activities. There's things that as we come back to this environment, it's amazing. And then when you go to the intermediate phase, it starts lacking a bit. And then suddenly in the high school, there's not much happening because we think, no, these children are older. It's going to be lame. They're not going to like what we have on the walls.
No, but they feel very special. And I've heard that from quite a lot of teachers. That they want that. High school kids also want that. High school kids also want the little sticker, the star in their books to make them feel special and to motivate them. It's amazing. Children will work the whole day for a Smartie. So motivate your students. Have a motivation chart there on the board as well.
Yeah, there's a huge drive towards badges. It's not only online. Online's become like a manifestation of the things that we really like. Have rewards, badges for your learners, whether they're in the high school or whether they're in the primary school.
Yeah, no, they all will just thrive when they...
Absolutely. Right, Herman, thank you for all of this value. This is a lot of value that came our way in the last few minutes. But I'd like to get to know Herman and share the qualities and the things of Herman from his origin story that makes him a super teacher. Where did everything start for you in education?
Well, I must say, I think my biggest learning took part at my first school.
Okay.
And it's been an amazing school. It was Pittsburgh Primary School.
Okay.
I've started there and I've taught there for 10 years, my first 10 years.
10 years at the first school.
But yes, amazing teachers there. There was, I had a mentor teacher, we all call him Mbut.
Yeah.
And he was just amazing with all of us, the new young teachers. He helped you to plan. And for the first month, you will sit and you will listen to his planning. And why is he doing it like that? Not just do it, but why? Mm-hmm. And then after a month, you could get the opportunity to start planning a subject. And that was of such value because we didn't have to do everything. It was divided between us, the new teachers. And it's so important that young teachers do get the right guidance on how to do it. Because I don't think, you study, but you don't get that guidance. You can only get it when you're at a school.
And having that mentor when you first start just creates that safety net. It's not like you're being thrown into the deep end and now you have to sink or swim. But having that mentor that guides you through it gives you that security.
Yeah. And you know what, also at the school they gave us the opportunity as teachers to be creative, to create your own lessons. And I think it's just a big thing in the beginning, you don't know how to reach your students. But you also learn, this is the type of students that I have, I can do this. The next year you have a different group and then you can't do it and you have to do something else. So it was an amazing learning curve that for me at my first school. And I've learned a lot. And then after that I've moved over to another school in Piet Retief, Maranatha Primary School, and I was the headmaster there. So there I've learned a lot of admin, but it was a small school, so I was still permanently in the class as well.
So it was a full-time principal and full-time teacher.
Yes, and then there was not a lot of people to do sports, so it was also the sport in the afternoons and all the activities. So there I've learned a lot of creativity and how to do it with a small budget and you need to do everything.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Zanin, and I've taught at Unicorn Prep school. Also, I've learned a lot there. I think what I've learned there was also, it was the beginning of the computer era.
Okay.
And they really trained their teachers, and I think they're still doing it. Train them to get the new technology and how to do it. So there's a lot of staff empowerment there, and they help their staff to enrich themselves. And also being at the private school, Unicorn Prep, it was just amazing to just also do things in a little bit of a different way, because you have the time and the
like the leeway
to do that.
and almost the permission to maybe move away from curriculum and not just be as
still stay in the curriculum, but add to it. Yeah. And then I've moved over to Curro Nelspruit, and also, wow, what a wonderful school. And yeah, they also gave me all the freedom that I could be a teacher and do different things with my students. Yeah, so I just love working with the students and bring a new world to them.
Okay. But now your current role, you're more involved with the teachers than with the learners. Tell us a bit more about your role. What is it that you currently do?
Yes, basically I'm a curriculum manager. So what I do is I create new things for the curriculum. We still stay in the curriculum, but to add new things, new innovative projects for the teachers. And the new buzzword in education at the moment is project-based learning, self-directed learning. So we do a lot of research, and we even worked out the lessons for the teachers so that they have it, because sometimes they hear the word project-based and they think it's a project.
Yes.
But it's not a project.
So let's spend some time on this. I think that's valuable. Tell us a bit more about project-based learning and your approach to it.
Yeah, project-based learning is basically a different teaching approach. And it will go over a few weeks, still in the curriculum. It's not something new. It's just a different way of teaching them. But the learners are more involved in this teaching, and deep learning takes place because they actually learn more. They learn extra things. They can discover things.
Which is not necessarily prescribed within the curriculum, but that the learners are interested in on their own, and they've got the leeway or the permission to go and learn the things that's not necessarily part of the curriculum.
Yeah, self-directed learning takes place then, because self-directed learning can only take place through project-based learning.
So give us an example. I think that's gonna help us. Give us an example of a project-based learning approach that you've implemented.
Okay, let's look at one of the lessons. It's an art lesson.
Okay.
Colliding of two worlds. And
so is that's the topic?
The topic, colliding of two worlds. So the students will do some research on two artists.
Okay. And
then they will, there's always a question, a driving question. And if it says a yes or a no, immediately it's not a driving question. And did the artist's life circumstances influence his or her work?
Okay, so you don't want to give a yes or a no answer to that.
No, because they have to go and do research. They have to look at the artist's life. They have to look at the artwork. And then they can make that decision. And then they create their own artwork by using the techniques of the different artists. They use the two artists and they put their work together.
And creating their own new art from that.
With the different art techniques.
So basically, if you would have a driving question there, it would be in the sense of how did this artist's life circumstances influence their art?
Yes.
They then get to know the history, they get to know the artists themselves.
Yes, and then they use those techniques that influence their lives to create their own.
So it forces the learner to reflect on their own life and their own life's experience.
Yes, and then critical thinking takes place. But then the one aspect that's not there is collaboration.
Okay.
And then what do we do for collaboration? We form different committees.
Okay.
And they have to organize their own art exhibition.
All right.
So the one group will organize the catering. So the teacher will then have a contract with them. So we know it's very difficult with group work.
Yeah.
So 4 is a very good number for group work. But what people see group work, everybody work on the same aspect. But when you have a group contract, and that's what we do in project-based learning, you decide, for instance, you are going to do the catering, and in the catering, you're going to organize the cool drinks.
Okay.
So that's your job. You're part of the group, you did collaborate and discuss it, but you have a purpose. And then another person will do the advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And that person will design the adverts and put it up. And then one will look, decide on the venue. They will have to go to the secretary of the school, book the venue. And then they will all put together their art, the art exhibition, and then they will be present at the exhibition. So the parents and the people there can ask them questions, and then they actually talk about the artwork and say how did it influence their lives, as well as how did the art of that specific artist influence their artwork. So it's a whole process, but imagine all the things that the learners learn from them.
And
from
isn't that just more exciting than completing a worksheet?
Yes, and it's the same work, it's part of the curriculum, it's just a different way of learning.
No, I agree with you, and I think that's such a valuable example. But plus, it relates back to the real world. It's something that they're going to do as adults, but also as part of the schooling environment. They get to learn so many skills.
Yes, and skills you can never take away from learners. If they have the skill, they will always use it.
Exactly. The one criticism we have of content is that Google has got the content. You can get the content at the click of a button. But those skills, it's something we have to develop from an early age. This example that you just gave us, what grade was that?
That was for grade 6.
So that's grade 6.
And you know what the amazing thing about project-based learning, the approach, everything happens in class. So the learners are allowed to bring their, maybe their information of the artist from home, and their their materials that they're going to use.
Yeah.
They can bring that from home, but everything happens in class.
So they work actively on the project during class time.
Right.
So you don't have this thing about, oh, did the parents do the task on behalf of the children or
Yeah.
not?
And I think there's a big, the teachers must make a mind shift. It's not a project, it's a different way of teaching. And if they do that mind shift, everything can be very, very productive in the class, and it will be successful.
And I think this is such a valuable way of combating this thing of the curriculum being overfull. And it's so cramped, where if we start looking for the aspects in the different subjects and we start incorporating and including it on a broader scale, we start covering content over the same period, but in an integrated fashion.
Yes, definitely.
Herman, thank you very much for that. Now, Herman wasn't prepared for the last part, and it's going to be quite a surprise for him. It's our quick fire round of questions. We ask this to everybody that's on the show, so they've got no idea what the questions are, because we want to get the authentic, real experience and their answers from here on. So I love this part of the show. Herman, what is your superpower?
I think to motivate.
Okay.
Definitely.
So give me an example. Who do you motivate? How do you do it?
Well, at this stage, when I was in class, I really motivate the students to do better work. And there's so much that you can do to motivate your students. Again, you need to know your students.
Mm-hmm.
And at this stage, I motivate teachers.
And it's the same thing. You have to know the teacher if you want to motivate them.
Yes.
It's like, if you can't relate, you can't educate. In your opinion, what makes an ideal teacher?
Definitely a teacher that will put their students, their learners first.
Absolutely. It comes down to our kids, and if all teachers think about the kids and relate with the kids first, I mean, very few things can go wrong from that point. What do you think, because there's a lot of negativity around education, specifically education in South Africa. What do you think are the positives that we currently have in education in South Africa?
I think there's so much positive. I think sometimes we want to think, people think of what's going to happen in the country, But we must know the positive thing, the most positive thing that we have as educators, we have learners. And if we have learners, we can educate and we can make a difference. We can change. So that is the most positive thing. The other things doesn't really matter as long as we have learners in our classes.
And I found that in my experience in dealing with teachers in general, the ones that are optimistic about the future, that rubs off on kids, and that assists kids to also remain optimistic and look towards the experiences that would really benefit them, instead of looking into the negativity the whole time.
Yes.
If we keep on looking at the negative things, we're going to see more negative things.
Yes, and we actually, as teachers, we need to steer our kids in a certain direction. If I think now of a quote from Dr. Seuss, you've got feet in your shoes, you've got a brain in your head, you can send yourself in any direction you want. And as teachers, we can send our learners in any direction they want. We can equip them and make them positive. And if we have positive learners, we will have a positive future.
Isn't that just an amazing message? Thank you for that. Herman, last one. If you could build a school, what would you do? You've got no limitation on resources. You can build your dream school, your ideal school. What would that school look like?
Sure, that's quite a difficult one. I will definitely have a big classrooms for the teachers that will love big classrooms. With different activities in the classroom, different space, and we have to look at the different learners. They all have different interests. Have that in the school.
Well, there you have it. Bigger classrooms for everybody. You have bigger space and you have bigger space and all of us just have more space. Herman, thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Francois. It was really wonderful to have this talk to you, and it's wonderful to talk to a super teacher.
Thank you, Herman. Colleagues, it's amazing having you part of the show. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch. Please like this on whichever platform that you are watching this. Share, subscribe, follow, and let's have this community of super teachers. Let's unite under one banner and make this amazing difference in each and every classroom. Until next time, I'm Francois Nodia, and this is Herman Matthee, and we are Super Teachers.